The fork froze halfway to her mouth. The wedding is off. I don't love you anymore. Brandon didn't lower his voice. He didn't lean in. He didn't soften a single word. He said it the way someone announces a reservation cancellation, loud enough for the entire Italian bistro to hear. Chairs scraped. Glasses paused mid-air. Conversations died all at once. If you've ever witnessed a moment where time seems to stall, this was one of them. 30 sets of eyes turned toward the table by the window, the table Brandon had specifically requested when they arrived. If you're enjoying stories where karma unfolds slowly and publicly, make sure you subscribe now. You don't want to miss how this ends. Megan sat perfectly still. The clink of silverware from another table echoed too loudly in the silence. Brandon's friends, Tyler, Josh, and Kevin, were seated just feet away, pretending not to stare, while clearly watching everything. Brandon leaned back in his chair, arms loose, jaw relaxed. He looked satisfied. Megan's hand didn't shake. That surprised even her. She slowly placed the fork down. "Thank you for being honest," she said. Her voice didn't crack. It didn't rise. It didn't beg. Brandon blinked. That wasn't the reaction he'd prepared for. He tilted his head slightly, studying her, waiting for the delayed impact. Tears. A raised voice. Something. Nothing came. Megan reached for her left hand. She slid the engagement ring off with deliberate care, the ring he had given her 2 years earlier at his parents' anniversary party. Kneeling in front of hundreds of people while phones recorded from every angle. She slipped it into her jacket pocket. "You know what?" she continued, calm settling into her tone like armor. "I think this calls for a narrow escape party." One of Brandon's friends snorted. Another laughed. Brandon's mouth curved into a smirk. This was entertaining him. He had planned this. He had chosen this place, this table, this audience. But Megan didn't crumble. "A narrow escape party," she repeated, almost thoughtfully. "Yes, that feels right." The laughter stopped. People were waiting now, watching closely. Megan reached for her water and took a slow sip. "Megan," Brandon said, his voice sharpening. "Did you hear what I said?" "I heard you perfectly," she replied. "You don't love me anymore. The wedding is off. I thanked you already." His jaw tightened. She pulled her wallet from her purse, placed cash on the table, her portion of the meal, and a generous tip for the server, whose eyes flicked nervously between them. "I have to say," Megan added, standing, "you chose quite the setting for this. Saturday lunch, a packed restaurant, your friends conveniently nearby. Very theatrical." Brandon's face reddened. "I thought you deserved the truth," he snapped. "And I got more of it than you intended," she said. She glanced toward his friends. "Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Your presence has been illuminating." Then she walked away. No tears, no shouting, no scene. As she passed tables, people leaned back to make room. Some watched with pity, others with confusion, a few with something close to admiration. Outside, cool air hit her face. She breathed deeply. Her hands were steady. Only once she sat inside her car did the weight of the moment fully settle, but it wasn't devastation. It was clarity. Her phone buzzed. "Natalie, how was lunch?" Megan stared at the screen for a second, then typed, "Wedding's cancelled. I'll explain later. I'm okay." She paused, then added, "Actually, I think I'm better than okay." The reply came instantly. "What? I'm coming over tonight." Megan started the engine. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she glanced back through the restaurant window. Brandon was still seated. His friends leaned in toward him now. He was probably explaining that she was in shock, that it would hit later, that she hadn't processed it yet. He had no idea what was actually happening. The drive home unraveled memories Megan had carefully ignored for years. She'd met Brandon at 23, fresh out of college. First real job. First taste of independence. He was charming, confident, and attentive, especially in public. On their first date, he listened closely as she talked about her dream of starting her own event planning business. He nodded, asked questions. Looking back, She realized he wasn't connecting. He was collecting information. By their first anniversary, her life had begun shifting around his preferences. He didn't like her college friends. She saw them less. Her apartment was inconvenient for his commute. She moved. Her business dream felt risky. She put it on hold. She told herself this was compromise. That's what relationships were, right? Her mother had asked once, quietly, "Megan, does Brandon make you happy?" She'd smiled and said yes. But happy wasn't the word. Comfortable, invested, trapped by time already spent. The proposal had come 18 months in. Public, spectacular, inescapable. 200 people watching as Brandon knelt and waited. What else could she say? Brandon loved an audience. The wedding planning had been more of the same. Bigger venue, more guests, higher cost. Every pushback turned into a lecture. "This is about our future," he'd say. He meant his future. She'd shrunk without noticing. In the car, Megan realized something else. Brandon hadn't ended the relationship impulsively. He'd staged it. Her phone buzzed again. "Brandon, that wasn't the reaction I expected. We should talk." She stared at the message, then did something she hadn't done in 4 years. She didn't respond. That night, Natalie arrived with wine and fury. "He planned it," Megan said after telling her everything. "The table, the friends, the audience." Natalie nodded slowly. "He wanted you to break." Megan swallowed. "Tyler was filming. I saw it when I stood up." Natalie's face hardened. "He wanted proof." A chill ran through Megan. This wasn't just a breakup, it was a production. And she had just refused to play her role. If you're still watching, like this video now. It helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. The messages started the next morning. "Megan, this silent treatment is immature." She read it while standing at her kitchen counter, coffee cooling untouched in her hand. Brandon's name on her screen didn't spike her pulse the way it used to. That absence of reaction unsettled her more than anger ever had. She didn't reply. By Sunday evening, another message arrived. "I didn't do this to hurt you. We should talk like adults." She placed her phone face down and went for a walk instead. The city felt different, lighter, as if something heavy had been cut loose. Monday morning brought a new tone. "People are asking me what happened. You need to help me explain this properly." That one made her laugh. Not loudly, just a breath through her nose. By Tuesday, irritation crept in. "I heard you're telling people you're throwing a party. What is that about? Are you trying to embarrass me?" Megan stared at the screen for a long moment. She wasn't telling people anything, but Brandon was clearly afraid of what she might say. The idea of the narrow escape party, once an instinctive deflection, now felt strategic. Natalie sat across from her that night, legs tucked beneath her, laptop open. "You're not doing this to be petty," Natalie said. "You're doing this to reclaim the story." "Yes," Megan replied. "Because he already has one ready." Natalie frowned. "What do you mean?" Megan opened a shared folder she hadn't touched since the wedding planning chaos had peaked. The guest list loaded slowly. Then something caught her eye. A second tab, priority notifications. 40 names, mostly Brandon's friends, his colleagues, a few distant family members. Next to each name, "Wedding update. Send immediately." Megan's stomach tightened. She clicked the document history. 2 weeks ago. 14 days before the restaurant. "He planned this," she whispered. Natalie leaned closer. "Open it." Inside the folder sat a drafted message. "As some of you witnessed today, I made the difficult decision to end my engagement to Megan. This wasn't easy, but I realized I couldn't commit to a future with someone whose values and goals no longer aligned with mine." Megan closed the laptop slowly. "He already wrote my obituary," she said flatly. "And I'm the villain in it." Natalie exhaled sharply. "He wanted witnesses. That's why his friends were there." There was more. Megan reopened the folder, heart pounding now, and dug deeper. A message thread. "Brandon to Tyler, sent the morning of the breakup. Today's the day. Bistro at 12:30. I want you there to witness." This is going to be good, Tyler's reply followed. Finally, been waiting for this. I'll record everything. Megan's hands trembled. Natalie's voice dropped. They were in on it. Yes, Megan said quietly. All of them. Another message. This one to someone named Rebecca. Sent the night before the lunch. Tomorrow I'm ending things with Megan. I know you've been patient. I can't wait to be free and start our new chapter. Megan stared at the name. I don't know a Rebecca, she said. Natalie's eyes darkened. You do now. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shouting match ever could. This wasn't impulsive cruelty. It was premeditated. He hadn't just ended the relationship. He had orchestrated an exit complete with narrative control, documentation, and a replacement waiting in the wings. Her phone buzzed again. I don't understand why you're ignoring me. This isn't healthy behavior, Megan typed slowly. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just no longer interested in conversations that serve your needs at the expense of my own. I think we're done communicating. The response came instantly. That's cold. I expected more from you. She turned off her phone. Natalie reached across the table and squeezed her hand. He underestimated you. He underestimated how quiet clarity can be, Megan replied. The next few days shifted from emotional to operational. The wedding was 6 months away. Deposits everywhere. Contracts signed mostly under Megan's name, because Brandon had said it was simpler. She called the venue first. The coordinator, Patricia, listened quietly. I'm sorry, Patricia said. The deposit is non-refundable. Megan nodded. I understand. But, Patricia added, hesitating, we can apply it as a credit toward another event. Megan paused. How soon could that be used? Patricia sounded surprised. Next month, if you want. Megan smiled for the first time that day. Yes, I think I do. The caterer offered flexibility. The photographer refunded half. The florist, Dominic, laughed softly when Megan explained. I always wondered, he admitted. You looked like someone trying to please the impossible. That sentence stayed with her. By Wednesday the plan was clear. Same venue, 3 weeks out. The narrow escape party would be real. The guest list was deliberate. Her friends, her family, her colleagues, and a few people from Brandon's circle, the ones who had been fed his version first. Let them see her. Let them decide. That evening, Natalie called, voice tight. I heard something, she said. From Tyler's girlfriend. Megan sat down slowly. What kind of something? Brandon's been telling people for months that you're unstable, clingy, that he was afraid to leave you privately. Megan closed her eyes. That's why he did it publicly, Natalie continued. He wanted witnesses. Proof. Megan's chest tightened. He wanted me to prove his story. And you didn't, Natalie said. So now he's panicking. The realization clicked into place with brutal clarity. The filming, the audience, the pre-written message. He hadn't just wanted out. He wanted justification. Her phone buzzed with another message from Brandon. I think you're in shock. The breakdown will come. Call me when you're ready. She deleted it. Instead, she opened her laptop again and began organizing everything. Dates, messages, documents. Not to expose him publicly, not yet, but to understand the full scope of what she'd escaped. If this story is pulling you in, make sure you're subscribed because what comes next is where everything flips. Megan didn't sleep much that night. Not because she was unraveling, but because her mind was finally alert. Awake in a way it hadn't been for years. She kept thinking about patterns. How Brandon had always been one step ahead. How conversations with friends had subtly changed over time. How people she loved had grown quieter around her. The next morning, she opened the phone records from the family plan they still shared. She didn't need to read messages. She didn't need access to content. The timestamps were enough. Rebecca, 5 months. Short calls at first. Sporadic. Then longer. More frequent. Late evenings. Early mornings. Brandon hadn't fallen into something accidentally. He transitioned. The public breakup wasn't an ending. It was a launch. Natalie called later that afternoon. One of my co-workers knows Tyler's girlfriend, she said. Apparently Brandon's been spiraling. Megan leaned back in her chair. How? He's calling people non-stop, saying you're not reacting normally, that you're delaying the meltdown. Megan closed her eyes briefly. He needs me to fall apart. Yes, Natalie said, because if you don't, his story collapses. That sentence settled deep. For years, Megan had absorbed comments Brandon claimed came from others. My friends think you're too intense. My mom says you don't understand ambition. My colleagues say you come off cold. She'd believed him, adjusted, smoothed herself down. It hadn't occurred to her that he might have been planting those perceptions himself, building a case, preparing an exit. The scale of it made her stomach turn not from heartbreak, but from recognition. She hadn't been in a failing relationship. She'd been inside a narrative someone else was writing. And now, for the first time, she had stepped out of the script. The invitations went out Tuesday morning. Simple, clean, forward-facing. No mention of a breakup. No drama bait. Please join me in celebrating a new beginning. The response was immediate. Texts, calls, emails, some supportive, some confused, some clearly curious. By Thursday, word had reached Brandon's circle. Natalie forwarded screenshots. Is Megan okay? This party feels weird. Do you think she's spiraling? Brandon seized on it. He told anyone who would listen that the party was proof of her instability, that it was a cry for attention, that people shouldn't encourage her behavior. The effect backfired instantly. Curiosity doubled, because the woman people remembered from that restaurant, the one who had calmly removed her ring and walked out, did not align with the image he was pushing. And then the unexpected call came. Brandon's sister. Megan? Addison's voice sounded cautious. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Megan hesitated, then nodded to herself. It's okay. I heard about what happened, and I heard about the party. A pause. I wanted you to know I never believed what my brother said about you. Megan's grip tightened on the phone. What did he say? That you were difficult, emotional, that he was afraid to leave you privately. Addison exhaled. But I watched you for 4 years. You weren't any of those things. You disappeared. The words landed harder than Megan expected. I thought that was love, Megan said quietly. I know, Addison replied. And I'm sorry none of us said anything sooner. After the call, Megan sat in silence for a long time. The pattern was undeniable now. People had seen it. They just hadn't known how to reach her. The night before the party, Brandon sent one final message. Longer than the others, more controlled, almost threatening. I've been hearing things about what you're planning. Please remember I have my own side of the story. If you try to make me look bad, I will respond. Megan read it twice, then deleted it. He wasn't afraid of lies being told. He was afraid of truth being visible. The venue looked nothing like the wedding she'd planned. Gone were the sterile whites and muted tones Brandon had chosen. In their place, warmth, color, life. Sunflowers instead of roses. String lights instead of chandeliers. This wasn't a reception. It was a reclamation. Guests arrived steadily. Friends Megan hadn't seen in years hugged her tightly. Colleagues smiled with relief. Family members looked at her like they were finally seeing her again. The question surfaced quietly at first. So, what really happened? Megan didn't volunteer details, but when asked, she answered calmly. Facts only. The planned breakup, the witnesses, the filming, the affair. Screenshots passed discreetly from phone to phone. No dramatics. No exaggeration. By 9 o'clock, the room had changed. People whispered. Conversations sharpened. Perspectives shifted. Jennifer, Kevin's wife, approached Megan, eyes rimmed red. I owe you an apology, she said. I didn't know. We thought we were helping Brandon escape something unhealthy. Megan nodded. I know. And now? Jennifer swallowed. Now I feel sick. That was when Megan understood. She didn't need to expose him. He was doing that himself through the evidence, through his panic, through his inability to stay away. And then Brandon appeared. He stood at the entrance, scanning the room, jaw clenched. Conversations lowered. Phones emerged. He walked toward Megan, anger barely contained. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "I'm hosting a party," Megan replied evenly. "You're not invited. You're trying to destroy me. I haven't told anyone anything untrue. You went through my files," he hissed. "Our files," she corrected. "The ones you never thought to lock." He raised his voice. "This is exactly what I warned people about. You're unstable, vindictive." Megan didn't flinch. She gestured around the room. "Look at them. Do I look unstable to you?" No one spoke. Brandon looked and saw disgust, pity, recognition. "You planned my humiliation," Megan continued calmly. "You filmed it. You prepared messages in advance. You had an affair, all documented." His mouth opened. Nothing came out. "You lost control of the narrative," she said. "And now you're proving everyone's doubts correct." Silence crushed the space. Brandon turned and left. The room exhaled. "If you've stayed this far, tap like it tells the algorithm this story deserves to be seen." The party didn't stop when Brandon left. That surprised Megan. For a brief moment, she'd expected the energy to collapse, to turn awkward or heavy, but instead, something else happened. People breathed again. Music swelled. Conversations resumed, deeper now, more honest. It felt like the room had been holding tension for years, waiting for permission to release it. Megan moved through the space slowly, accepting hugs, answering questions, listening more than she spoke. Every interaction reinforced the same truth. The woman Brandon had described did not exist, and the woman standing here was undeniable. Elena pulled her into a tight embrace near the bar. "I knew you'd find your way back," she said. "I just didn't know it would happen like this." "Neither did I," Megan admitted. Across the room, Natalie caught her eye and raised her glass. No words, just recognition. By midnight, the party softened into something warm and intimate. Laughter echoed where silence once lived. Old friendships reconnected without strain. When the last guests finally drifted out, Megan stood alone in the quiet ballroom. No dread, no emptiness, just peace. The following weeks revealed how thoroughly Brandon's narrative had unraveled. People who had once repeated his concerns stopped returning his calls. Professional contacts grew distant. Invitations dried up. Rebecca, the woman he'd been planning to start fresh with, ended things abruptly after learning the full story. His friends fractured under scrutiny. Tyler's girlfriend left him after discovering his role in the recording. Kevin's wife, Jennifer, began asking questions she could no longer ignore. Megan didn't track these outcomes closely. She didn't need to. Her attention had shifted entirely. With the wedding officially dissolved, Megan resigned from her job at the conference center. The decision terrified her, but the fear felt clean, honest. Unlike the anxiety she'd lived with for years, she launched her event planning business quietly at first. Small clients, intimate gatherings, but word spread. People remembered the party, remembered her calm, her precision, her ability to create something meaningful out of chaos. Within 6 months, she was fully booked. Within a year, she hired help. The version of herself that once asked permission now set boundaries without apology. She rebuilt friendships slowly, intentionally. Her mother visited often. Her laughter came easily now. On the 1-year anniversary of the restaurant lunch, Megan stood alone in her office. Lights dimmed, city glowing outside. She remembered the fork suspended in air, the silence, the expectation that she would fall apart. She smiled. That moment had not broken her. It had freed her. If this story resonated with you, subscribe now. These stories are about reclaiming power, and there are more to come. Megan didn't hear Brandon's name much after that. At first, people would bring him up carefully, like touching a bruise to see if it still hurt. But it didn't. Not the way they expected. He moved, someone mentioned once. Different city, another added later. Trying to start over, a third said, almost apologetically. Megan listened politely, and let the conversation move on. She wasn't avoiding the topic, she was done carrying it. What stayed with her instead were the quiet moments that followed, moments that would have gone unnoticed a year earlier. Sitting in her office after a long day, reviewing contracts she'd negotiated herself, laughing too loudly at dinner with friends she'd once been told were bad influences, saying no without explaining why. She noticed how her shoulders no longer crept toward her ears when her phone buzzed, how silence no longer felt like punishment, how calm no longer meant suppression but choice. One afternoon, while organizing old files, Megan came across the wedding planning folder she'd forgotten to delete. For a moment, she considered closing it. Then she opened it. She scrolled through the guest lists, the seating charts, the endless compromises captured in spreadsheets and emails. She saw herself in the margins, always adjusting, always accommodating, always smoothing friction that hadn't been hers to fix. She deleted the folder, not angrily, not ceremoniously, just decisively. Later that evening, Natalie joined her for dinner. "You ever think about how close you were to marrying him?" Natalie asked, half joking, half serious. Megan considered the question. "Not in the way you mean," she said. "I think about how close I was to disappearing." Natalie nodded slowly. "You didn't just dodge a marriage, you dodged a life." That felt accurate. The truth Megan had learned wasn't about Brandon alone, it was about how easily love could be confused with endurance. How often people mistake shrinking for compromise. How manipulation rarely announces itself, it just rearranges reality until you forget what you used to want. A year after the party, Megan hosted another event. This one was smaller, intentional, a client celebration for her growing business. As she moved through the room, confident and grounded, she caught sight of a woman watching her with quiet recognition. Later, that woman approached. "I hope this isn't strange," she said, hesitating, "but I heard about what you went through. I just ended an engagement myself. Watching you tonight, it helped." Megan smiled gently. "I'm glad." The woman exhaled. "How did you know when it was really over?" Megan didn't answer immediately. She thought about the restaurant, the cameras, the script Brandon had written for her. "I knew when I stopped trying to explain myself," she said. "When I realized clarity doesn't need permission." The woman nodded, eyes shining. Megan watched her walk away and felt something settle into place. This was the ripple effect. Not revenge, not exposure. Truth, lived visibly. That night, Megan locked up her office and stepped into the cool air. She paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the city lights. A year ago, she had been sitting in a restaurant, surrounded by strangers, expected to fall apart on command. Instead, she had stood up. She had thanked him. She had walked away. And in doing so, she had rewritten everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. The narrow escape party had never been about humiliation. It had been about reclamation, about choosing herself without apology, about learning that dignity is the most destabilizing response of all. If you stayed until the end, thank you. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps more stories like this find their way to the people who need them. And remember, sometimes the moment meant to break you is the moment that sets you free.